Congratulations. Thank you, sir. It's a great moment. That's why I cancelled my other meeting, and 2 o'clock I made sure that no other meetings there. Thank you very much. Actually, yeah, it's my duty. And he's the first full-time scholar for SO, you know. Part-time, first registration. Next about. Oh, he was not the one who was here. No, he is not full-time. Okay. He is a part-time. Our instructor, basically. So he is not full. No, that's right. He was here. Huh? He was here. Yeah. Sorry, sir. I didn't mean. Okay. I didn't mean that. Full-time. I thought in campus. He's in the campus. He's in the campus. Good. But registration, part-time registration. With DSU. With DSU.
Sure, sir. Mute your audio.
Sorry, sir. Yeah, stop.
Sir, we'll start at 9:31.
Sure, yeah. Sir. Sure, whatever. No problem.
Yeah, it's 9:31 now.
Yeah.
Good morning. It gives me immense pleasure to extend a warm welcome to Professor Jamadagni, who is going to talk to us on science and philosophy under Upanyasa series. And he's going to briefly talk about the Upanyasa concept, then he'll come to the subject. And also extend a warm welcome to the members present for this talk. And more or less, BITES has been organizing many of these lectures by eminent personalities, eminent experts in the domain. And I don't have to introduce Professor Jamadagni. Of course, he does not like it as well. He is well known to the audience here. I also thank Dayanand Sagar University for providing all the support for hosting this lecture. Over to Professor Jamadagni to tell us about Upanyasa and the topic of today, science and philosophy. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. So, oh, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's coming now?
Yes, sir. Coming.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning. Welcome to all the participants in the lecture. This series, we want to introduce an experiment, and so we call it Upanyasa. I just briefly want to tell you what this means, what this lecture series means. It is an experiment in trying to use public spaces for knowledge sharing. Now, the question was, we started sometime back, Professor Murthy, me, Professor Kavi Mahesh, and many others. We have been talking about what did public places like public transport, pubs and cafes do in the past? It's funny to ask this question because apart from taking people around and allowing people to get entertained, they also did a lot more of things. So my most favorite, I have showed it 1,000 times. I'll show it for the 1,001st time. This is Café des Fleurs in Paris, which was a inexpensive restaurant in the early parts of 20th century. It's about, I believe it is about 170 years old. And this is a place where people like Jean-Paul Sartre met. And Jean-Paul Sartre, as you know, is a famous philosopher. And then he was, just 1 minute, sir, I'm unable to get the full screen. Okay. And then Jean-Paul Sartre was meeting there, and they had just coffee and informal chats and so on. And the whole philosophy of existentialism sort of took birth in that place and evolved and developed into a major movement in the 20th century. Started in a cafe, which even now it still exists. Now, of course, because it is a celebrity cafe, it has become more expensive, but still it still exists. And you see the same place where Pablo Picasso, the famous painter, also used to come and sit and then share his ideas with people. So this is what happened in public places. Then this is a very interesting public place. It is a cafe again, but in Munich, Cafe Lutz Hofgarten, and it is quite a well-known place. I mean, well-known in the early part of 20th century. And if any of you go to Munich, you can go there. It is very close to what is called Mariannplatz, and then it's a famous institution. And this must be about 200 years old now. And this is a place where a lot of physicists met. Sommerfeld students, particularly, they started this tradition, and Rontgen students and Sommerfeld and others. And they would, I believe they would meet here after lunch and have a coffee and some cake. And after that, start discussing physics. It is said that a major part of physics was done on the tabletops of this restaurant. And initially, the waiters and waitresses there, they didn't like it because they had to clean the whole thing. But these people would go and sit on the table and start writing diagrams and equations and so on. So this is what happened there. This is another cafe in Vienna. And this is a place where the famous Kurt Gödel wrote his Gödel's theorem. Again, he was sitting with a lot of people. What you see on the right top corner is today's Josephine Cafe. If you go there, you can still sit down, have a coffee, and it's a very nice place. Then this another public place, which you saw where a lot of things happened, particularly in the last 30 years. Look at this. Somebody advertised, I think it was a church or whatever, there definitely is God. So join the Christian party, etc. on the buses of London. And there came, after some time, on the same buses of London, there is probably no God. So now stop worrying and enjoy your life. So they use the same sentence like the this one, theists, but then they give a completely different. So it gives a very, the thing is, public place is where people just look at things. And therefore, anything that happens there will have some kind of an influence on their mind. Then this is another thing. I just want you to, I'll tell you what it is. In the meantime, just keep listening. This is a tram, and tram in Salzburg. And this is so in many other cities also in Europe. And Professor Kincha also knows this thing, that in Germany, they had at one point of time a movement where they said, let us take music to public. They would simply take a few professionals in music, and they would simply randomly go to some bus and tram and so on and start playing for some time. And it used to again have an enormous effect. And just imagine this Schubert, when you're traveling and you're tense, just listen to this for 10 seconds. So such a calming music, and this adds a lot to the understanding by public and so on. So the idea was, so the question we posed ourselves was, can we do anything in public platforms, and we can do what these people have done in the past and do more. So what are we trying to do? We want to address people to share ideas, perspectives, and experiences, establish contacts, collaborations, attract voluntary participation on current topics of importance with affordable investment of time and efforts. Now, why do we want to do this? We are now, as you know, in the cusp of fourth industrial revolution. And whenever there is an industrial revolution, the life becomes so different and complicated later that we don't know, unless we are prepared for it, there'll be a strife for a very long time. It happened during the first, second, third, all kinds of industrial revolutions. And if at all, it is going to happen exponentially more even now. So there are many emerging technologies, and they have a major role to play in our daily lives. And whether you want it or not, they will come into your life. And these will have a lot to share and benefit from collaborations and interactions. And topics beyond technology are also going to play a very significant role in the future. Actually, coincidentally, today, there was a newspaper article in the Deccan Herald. They quoted a report which was submitted to the Nature magazine, which said that currently in today's world, more than 50% by weight of surface of Earth is man-made. Just, I want to repeat this. The man-made objects on Earth's surface has exceeded 50% of the total mass that we have. And it was 7% in the beginning of 20th century. So which means whether you want it or not, we are changing the world so much and we are putting so many objects on this Earth that it is going to have a significant role. So if you see quickly where are all the things that are happening, you have a number of areas which you have talked about elsewhere. And I would like your attention to kindly be drawn to the last three particularly. Social sciences, it is taking a very major role nowadays in understanding social media, in understanding impacts of internet, understanding privacy, and understanding so many other things. And then economics, actually, that is, I think you see that in newspaper every day, that the future of jobs is in jeopardy. Then we are approaching what is called economic singularity. And then there is also a dangerous concentration of financial power. People are talking about the machines taking over the world. But now a few people have taken over the world. You have to only see growth of a company like Amazon. And Amazon having come, they have redefined the whole world of selling. And these mom and pop shops, as we called it, I mean, their existence is in serious trouble. So we have such a problem. Then we have also what is called economy of plenty. We always talked about shortage, and now we are talking about plenty. I mean, particularly in computers. Now, CPU is so cheap, then memory is so cheap, communication is so cheap, and things are happening. So there is no question of any more limitation, and this economy of plenty. Then in philosophy, we particularly, if you look at learning and intelligence, these were domains of philosophy earlier. What is learning? What is intelligence? And today, they are now being used to understand what is machine learning and what is AI, and what is its relation to really learning and the intelligence. And then the singularity, nature of reality, and so things are just exploding. So how do we propose to do this? We want to have a 1 hour talk totally on Upanyasa on a chosen theme. In Upanyasa, as you know, I don't have to explain. It is a very famous Sanskrit term for a lecture. And we want to introduce, expose some ideas, and then have Q&A. Actually, post Upanyasa, what we really want to do is an open interaction with some food, fun, and frolic. That's why I said pubs and cafe. So hopefully in future, we will do this in those places, leading to further contacts, work, and collaborations. So some initial themes we have chosen are science and philosophy, study of small forests, then human-animal conflicts, then music, their intellection, art, science, and business, then social networks, their benefits, barriers, and addiction, and then observational sciences, what it is to observe birds to planes to black holes and other astronomical kind of things. Anybody can volunteer for this. We want the following things for the volunteers. They should be enthusiastic in the area. There is no point in simply just getting it without enthusiasm. They should have worked on the theme for a reasonable period. It cannot be just the Google and the internet knowledge. It has to be a first-hand knowledge to a certain extent. It is not possible always to get deep into that sometimes, but at least some knowledge. And then have time and resources. It cannot be just a afterthought. And then use your own material for all presentations. In the sense, the presentations that you make will use materials which you know, which you have chosen, which you have read, which you have actually photographed, captured, etc. And of course, you are interested in collaborations and constructive contributions to the whole area. So this is what we want to do. And the first of this is the first one that we want to do is the science and philosophy. Is the screen coming?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's coming, sir. Coming, sir. Yeah. Sir, make it full screen.
For some reason, I am unable to
It was coming, sir.
share the screen. Stop share.
It was coming. It's coming, sir. Coming.
Sir,
Yeah.
is the screen coming? Professor
Yes, sir.
Murthy?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Coming. It's coming, sir. Hello? Sir, am I audible?
Yes, sir. We're able to hear you, sir.
Yeah, it's coming, sir. It's coming. Make it full screen. Javadi, sir, is coming. You make it full screen.
Hello?
Make it full screen, sir. It's working. Sir, ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ full screen ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಷ್ಟೇ.
ಅದೇ ಇದು
ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ.
ವಾಯ್ಸು ಇದೆಯಾ?
ಇದೆ sir. Perfect.
Okay.
It's perfect now, sir. Full screen and voice.
Yeah.
Sorry for the interruption. There was some glitch. So, as a first topic, more like an example of what we want to do in Upanyasa, we want to look at this science and philosophy. In this talk, we want to see their objectives, benefits, and methodology. So, I will always start with a disclaimer. This disclaimer is a famous one from unknown source, but ancient Sanskrit saying, Yatra Vaidikaha Tatra Tarkikaha. That is, if you are a Vaidika, I am a Tarkika, a logician. Yatra Tarkikaha Tatra Vaidikaha. If you are a philosopher or a logician, I am a Vaidika. Yatra Chobhayo Tatra No Bhayaha. If you are both, I am none. Yatra no bhayo tatra chobhayaha. If you are none, I am both. So that is the spirit in which I am starting. So if there are philosophers in the audience, consider me a scientist. If there are scientists, consider me a philosopher. If there are both, consider me as none. And if you don't have anyone, if you are none, then I am both. So that is the spirit with which we'll go ahead with this one. Okay. So again, the second disclaimer, I was using it from the earlier lecture. There's a whole region where philosophy and philosophers are actually sort of located in their mental space. And we see that we are addressing most of the world in between, who have a reasonable physical need for living, safety, security, etc. And they're generally their well-being is good. They don't have serious diseases and so on. And their anxiety is not normally too strong. I mean, there is no survival anxiety, and they don't have seriously too much of existential anxiety. These are the people who will be beset with some questions at times when they go to one extreme or the other. We are looking at the thoughts of these people and thoughts meant for these people. If there is somebody who is struggling for life, we don't need philosophy. If we have a saint like Raikwa, I mean, he is already there. He doesn't require this world at all, let alone the philosophy. So we are only talking about those people who are in between to whom we require philosophy. Then the third disclaimer is, in this presentation, when I say science, I largely take examples from physics and cosmology, but it applies to every other science. The reason I'm not selecting is, first of all, it becomes too broad. And secondly, I'm not familiar with them. At least physics and cosmology, I'm slightly familiar. That's why I do that. Similarly, philosophy, I stick to mostly Indian philosophy and some Western philosophy here and there because of familiarity reasons. And it doesn't mean that all philosophies are not to be considered for anything like this. And finally, I don't include any religion. Kindly note that this is not a religious talk. There are some people who think that the moment you put a Devanagari script on the screen that it becomes religious. Any Sanskrit word becomes religious. Please, again, I want to emphasize there is no religion that we will talk about, and we are not going to talk about anything which is deeply concerned with religion at all. Okay, now coming to that, why are we looking at this topic? Because there are a lot of questions which bother us. These are some of them. I have not put in any order. I took it from some famous people, some not so famous people, and then compiled the list. Is there something rather than nothing? This is very interesting. Why does this world have anything at all? Why should we have anything? I mean, why is there a galaxy? Why is there a human being? Could we not have, I mean, would it be possible that there is a world, there was nothing? Then what is reality? This is a big question. We will address this in a later lecture at a later point of time. But what is reality? You see, are we seeing really things which are as they have to be seen, or is there anything fundamentally different? The question of this actually comes from many different directions, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we go along. Then, do we have a free will? It looks like we have a free will. On the other hand, if I have a free will and I want to become a prime minister of this country, can I really become prime minister of this country? So it is probably impossible for me. Then what is my free will worth? Does it really have any significance at all? And then is there anything observed or experienced objectively? Again, we will address this a little bit later. And is there life after death? Is God's existence a requirement? There is a famous statement, I think it was Leibniz or Laplace, I think. And he was giving, no, I think Leibniz. He was giving a long lecture to the then emperor of France. And then after the lecture, in the end, the emperor asked, hey, you gave a beautiful lecture, but you never mentioned God and you never brought him anywhere. He said, I didn't need the necessity for him. So that question has been there for years. Is there a requirement for this God? And then is there an objective morality? Note that morality is not a philosophical question, but this is a typical problem that you will see in the Western philosophy, where Western philosophy tends to mix the morality, ethics, and also religion into philosophy. Whereas in Indian philosophy, these things are kept really distinctly different. Then there are other more fundamental questions. As I told you, I took the physics as an example today. What is space-time? We know it for 100 years, but we still haven't sorted out. What is dark matter? This is something really, really puzzling. All that we can say about dark matter is, I know nothing, because it is such a topic. Then what is consciousness? This is bothering, remember, it is bothering both physicists and philosophers. What is this so-called consciousness? Why am I conscious? Then how did life begin? This is another big question. Now people are trying to answer this. Then how much can we know? Are there limits to knowledge? Then can we conquer nature, etc.? So what we do today is we will see how science and philosophy look at these questions. Then what are their objectives? What do they claim as the benefits of studying them? And then what are the methodologies to investigate these questions? I want to repeatedly come back to some of the questions, because I think just putting it at one place and then forgetting about it, or assuming that during the entire lecture we remember, that is not probably going to happen, because some of these questions are very funny kind of questions. So I will repeatedly ask this question, but more from a structural point of view now. So what is space-time is one of the questions. What is the big deal about it? The big deal about it is that 100 years back, Einstein integrated time into space, and he said that we are living in a 4-dimensional space where time is one of the spaces. Now, how do I even interpret? And if you want to bring it to the domain of normal mathematics, with this time, you have to associate an imaginary number I, X, Y, Z, and IT. We don't say T. So what is this whole thing? Why did we bring the complex number? And then what does it mean? And then, for instance, when you say simultaneously in space-time, is it different from when we say simultaneity in just space alone or in time alone? So these are some of the things which are actually bothering us. It has not been completely resolved yet. Dark matter, we realized about 30 years back that the universe, as we know from the optics and electromagnetic radiation and a few other things, it is only 5% of the universe we see. There is about 85% which we do not know, out of which there are two components, the so-called dark matter and dark energy. And both are mysterious. They make their presence felt, but they don't interact. You cannot make measurements. You cannot see them. So that's why it was called a dark matter. What is this? Is it really, are we talking sense at all about dark matter? Is what is puzzling people. Then how did life begin? This is a huge problem. Now we know DNA, blah, 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 all this, but then it has basically carbon, nitrogen, then phosphorus at some places, oxygen and hydrogen. These five elements formed, but mostly, I mean, there are other things, but these are the most common elements. And this formed this entire thing called life with all its diversity. And it introduced so-called evolution. It's a real puzzle and how we do this. Consciousness, this is something like, it's a problem which can lead to fights between people. When you say I am conscious, what exactly do you mean? And then where does that consciousness arise from? Again, remember that we are all made of material beings like carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen. Where does consciousness arise in this flesh, in this Sanskrit has a nice word. They say in this pinda. Where does this consciousness arise? Pinda is really a gross physical object. And in this pinda, this consciousness has arisen. How does it happen? And how much can we know? This is an interesting question, particularly in the context of machine learning, because now suppose machine has learned something, let's say to recognize numbers or face or whatever. How does it do it? We do not know. Absolutely, we have no idea. We have no idea, even if you give all the coefficients present in that machine learned object, that doesn't tell you how does it know that it is a face? And therefore, is there a limit to this knowledge? And at one point of time, we have to give up and say, somehow things happen. No, what does it mean? Then how much can we master the nature? Can we control weather, for instance? Hopefully not, but can we do that? Then Schrodinger went on asking, Mind and Matter in his book, who are we? Look at a physicist asking this question. Because quantum mechanics has a lot to do with observer. He bothered him a lot. Who are we? And he wrote a lot of articles on this. And then he even went to study Indian philosophy. He knew the Shankara Bhashya fairly well in later part of his life. And where I have come from and where am I going? This Schrodinger asking. I mean, he's a physicist. He is not bothered about so many other things. Then more general things. Again, I have collected these questions from many philosophers and others. Who am I? Where have I come from? What is death? Does something survive death? What is creation? Is there a limit to know things? Is there a cessation of unhappiness? If you look at these questions, these are something like 5,000 years old. Mahavira has asked, then Buddha has asked, and our own rishis have asked, and modern philosophers have asked, Socrates has asked, and these are questions which do not seem to go away. So I just want to illustrate to show the ancientness of this with a few questions like this. This first one, this is from the Kenopanishad. Keneshidam padati preshadam manaha. Now, I don't want to translate and work on this totally, but what it simply says is, it looks like I am driven from outside. Strotram kavudevo yunakti. That is the last word. It looks like somebody is driving me. He is driving my manas. He is maintaining my life prana. And then even my talking, seeing seems to be driven by somebody. What am I? It is a deep psychological question. What am I? Then, Katha. There is a lot of confusion in all of us. Some people say something survives our death. Some people say nothing survives death. Remember, this is a question which is about 4,000 years old. Even in those days, some people didn't believe that anything survives death. So they are asking a question, what is this? Tell me. Then, Kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvavidam vijñātam bhavati. This is from Mundaka, which is asking, oh my Lord, I am tired of learning. Tell me one thing if I learn about which. It is like learning everything. I don't want to keep on learning. Is there one thing in the world which I just want to know? If I know this, I should know everything. Then here it is from Chandogya, which says, the whole world is made of a stuff called Sadvastu. And it is Ekameva Dvitiyam. This is the only stuff, and there is no second one. Arihi Bhagava Brahma, the question, a student comes and says, you keep on talking about the Sadvastu. Then what is this Brahma? He is asking that question. Then the answer given by the teacher is, Tadvijijnasasva. Look at the answer. He says, understand it by discussion, by debate, by thinking about it. He doesn't give any kind of a in-between answer. Then the last, that's also a very interesting question from Chandogya. It says, I know so many things. This is a Narada Sanat Kumara. He goes and says, I know so many things. I have mastered many, many arts. And these arts and science I have mastered. But Shochami, this whole, the sadness never goes away from me. I have come to you because somebody told me that you give me a knowledge which will actually get rid of the this one of the shoka. Then Schrodinger, he said, can results of scientific research be of any help in gaining a reasonable and satisfactory attitude towards those burning questions? Then he also asked, which I think, can science vouchsafe on the matter of religion? I want you to again kindly focus on this word religion. Here he means philosophy also, because in typical Western world, they mix up all these kind of issues together into one, what they call a religion. So the answer for the impatient is yes, at a certain level of understanding, we can answer these questions, but no at other lives, and why? Now, how are we going to decide this? So I have just put some metrics. These are the measures by which we can do. One is we should look at the purpose. Why are these people working? Why is physics doing anything? Why is philosophy doing anything? Next, we should say what is the benefit they claim? They do the same. There are some benefits. Then what is the methodology they use? Is it sound? Is it a weak methodology? Then we have a host of other things that we can add. But for our purpose, I'm only considering the first three metrics in this particular talk. So let's look at the purpose of life, of science. So science is a century-old endeavor to bring together means of systematic thought and the perceptual phenomena to this world. And so he's actually focusing as science as an endeavor to bring systematic thought of perceptible phenomena. Look at that. If some phenomenon is not perceptible, it is not coming into this world. And to this world, and by a thoroughgoing association as possible. So this is what Einstein felt. So according to him, the purpose of science is threefold: bring together means of a systematic thought, perceptible phenomena, and thoroughgoing association. These are the three things that a science will have to do. Then continuing this, he said, we may well define various other things. What he is saying, you can read it later. What he is saying essentially here is, science is answering the questions of actually phenomena, how they happen, etc. But how to use it, the independent and fundamental definition regarding goal and value of humans, they remain beyond science's reach. Please note this point, and Einstein was very clear about this. While we do science, it does not go into the domain of setting goals and values beyond science's reach, and it cannot be a part of science. If you say that I'm going to say value by scientific means, he says it is not possible. So here he is clearly distinguishing that science is something which is going to study phenomena, which is going to do a lot of things, but it is not going to touch and set goals for you, set values for you, and set any particular way forward for you. It is your problem. Suppose we have climate change, it is my problem. If I go on a war, it is your problem. The science can never say why a war, why a climate change, why something happened. No. And it is beyond them. It is for you. So he's clearly distinguishing and drawing a borderline for science, saying that these are beyond science. Then I took a few definitions we'll quickly go through. They define as a systematic observation, blah, blah, blah. Then organized body of knowledge derived from observations. Then Vanderbilt University, not that this is any great university, I just took it from one randomly chosen university science page. It says it involves more than gaining knowledge. It is a systematic and organized inquiry into natural world and its phenomena. Then the main thing, if you see all these phenomena, what they want to do is they define science wants to push rationalism. That is, trace with a phenomenon, consistent structure, ordering and conforming with reason, establish rationality and experimentation, over superstition, speculation, diktat, and domination. Look at the last 4 words. They want to overcome any superstition. So there is no question of superstition. There is no speculation. Well, there is speculation, but then it is subject to a strong scientific methodology, which we will see. So there are no non-known speculations. Diktat, it doesn't follow anybody's, you cannot, science will not say, do this for me. And I have said, do this. No, no question. You may make a vaccination, but to take it or not is your problem and your privilege. And it cannot dictate and say that you shall take a vaccination. And then it cannot dominate. A scientist is not a dominating person. Then it forces understanding, coordinate human experience, bring them to a logical system, understand the universe. And the universe really is a whole of universe that we are talking about. And it talks about change of attitude, where perception, prejudice, power, these are all actually countered. And then you want to bring to a system where there is no prejudice and there is no power. Let's look at philosophy. The purpose of philosophy, I mean, this particular biography is from the Western philosophers that I have taken. I will present the Indian philosophy a couple of slides later. So the purpose of philosophy is not clear to many, is what many Western philosophers think. Then people often complain that philosophy does nebulous and unproductive things, and it is even pointless. In fact, even famous scientists like Feynman, he said that he has no use for philosophy. Keep it to yourself. Don't bring it to me, is what he said. People do not readily agree about what is being studied. And without a clear understanding of the objective inquiry, it is not clear how to investigate. Then it focuses on a special set of highly abstract and often self-referential questions. Now, again, focus on this question of self-referential question. The biggest self-reference that you can think of, kindly give a little thought to this, is we are asking a question, what is mind and what is consciousness? And who is asking? My mind and my consciousness. I am asking, what is my mind? And I am asking, what is my consciousness? This is a self-reference. I am asking something about myself in a way. And any self-referential question is beset with problems. I'll give you a very famous example that people typically say. Suppose I say, I am a liar. Please look at the question carefully. I am a liar, and I will ask Professor Murthy to tell me, am I speaking truth? If he says, yeah, you are telling truth, then I am a liar, so I cannot be a liar. And suppose he says, no, you are not telling a lie. I mean, you are not telling a lie, you are telling the truth. Then I am a liar. Then my statement is wrong. If you say no, you are not telling a lie, you are honest, then I am a liar is true, and therefore I am contradicting myself. So a self-referential question is beset with this deep problem. In a way, this is what led to Gödel's theorems and many other things, where if you have a system of certain axioms, and you cannot derive all truth from that system, and you cannot deny all falsehoods from that system. It is a huge problem. And most philosophers, they often ask questions which are self-referential. Remember that in physics, we don't ask such questions. Well, towards the end of physics, maybe. But normally you ask, what is this world? What is electromagnetic radiation? What is this? And even in biology, why does cat behave this way? Or in behavioral psychologies and so on. And what is the internal structure of a cat? So these are answerable questions. But if you ask, what is consciousness? And consciousness is asking that, now how do I step out of this consciousness to answer this question? How do I step out of my mind to ask this question as to what is mind? So the purpose of philosophy is to focus on such tedious questions, which are often self-referential. And they're most interested in questions, therefore, as what is the purpose of life? Come on, you are living this life. And if you ask, what is the purpose of my life? After you exhaust all the basic things like I want to look after my people, then my community, I want to govern the whole country, make India the next biggest power and so on, sooner or later you will come to, oh, is that what you want to do? And then is that the purpose of life? Can that be okay? Another way of looking at it is, can all the 1.3 billion people have the same purpose as becoming the chief of the country to lead it further? So it's a problem. What is the nature of morality? This is a question from Western philosophy. In Indian philosophy, we take out morality of philosophy. It is a separate question and we answer it differently. But in the Western philosophy, they ask this question. The reason for that is, while we vegetarians do not like people who eat meat, what about a tiger? Do you not like a tiger as a vegetarian? And is it immoral that a tiger eats meat? So there is no question of defining a proper morality. When it comes to tiger, it is completely moral. Within the domain of morality for it to go and hunt. There is nothing wrong. And therefore, the very nature of what is morality is something which we cannot, which we need to question. What is the nature of things that exist? Oh, this is a huge problem. The best example again comes from Indian philosophy. They say it is called Ghatapata Nyaya. So you say pata, that you have a cloth. Now, suppose I ask, is cloth really real? Then you say, no, it is made of threads. Without threads, there is no cloth. How can you make a cloth without a thread? Therefore, really cloth is not cloth, but it is a set of threads vertically and horizontally gone. Then you can go ask, is thread really the final thing? No, it is made of cotton. Is cotton the reality? So if you keep on asking, we keep regressing and we come to the conclusion that what I see is not what the existence is. Actually, it is somehow some magic has produced this cloth. But cloth is really fundamentally, ultimately quarks and all those things. Therefore, what is that which exists then? Where does its existence come from? Is a big puzzle, both in physics and in philosophy. Does God exist? This is a typical Western philosophical question. I want to remind you again. Then, because if you take any of our philosophical texts in the Indian context, the name God hardly ever exists. The best example is a sutra called Nasadi Sutra. It is in the beginning of Rig Veda. And there it asks, how did this world come about? The same question. And then somebody says, go and ask the gods. Then the answer to that is absolutely amazing. The answering person, he says, look, even Lord God created after the creation. How does he know how the world was created? So the God, actually, as God, as many people understand, is not even a part of the deepest philosophy that we ask. There may be some relation, but so in the Western philosophy, it is not so. It is so intertwined that they have a problem like this, and they get into a lot of fundamental issues because this question, which should not be asked really in philosophy, is asked in philosophy. How does reasoning work? What is justice? Note again that anything like common man's problem like justice and other things have been brought into philosophy in the Western world, but not in our context. What is the best explanation of consciousness? Then to give solution to the problem, so purpose is to give solution to the problem of life through a full use of human reason, made concrete in dogmas, theism, creation, etc. Then primary purpose of philosophy is to help to understand the critical issues in life and investigate the following: where am I? And then what is right and wrong? Does absolute truth exist, etc. Now, Indian philosophy has a little different take. There are a lot of different things, but there is one text from which I have taken this. It says, ending the ignorance relating to the object of truth is true knowledge is Indian philosophy, is the purpose. So look at this, one bold stroke. It says, you are ignorant about the true knowledge, object of true knowledge. I want to end that ignorance, and that is the purpose of my philosophy. It is attaining, therefore, the joy of one's own true nature. I don't want to bring joy to you from outside. It is your own true nature. You are joyful. You have forgotten. I want to remind you that. I want to remind you with arguments that the true, what is the ignorance that you have, how to get rid of it, and then how to bring the joy. This is condensed in a text called Vedanta Sara, a famous Devagna's text. This condenses everything that the Indian philosophy wants to do. Look at the question. There is no God here. There is no question of morale or anything that is come. It is only addressing ignorance, and it is addressing the joy of one's own nature. Okay, uses of science in the abstract. It is understanding the universe and phenomena. I want to know what is this, how does current flow? Then how does electromagnetism work? How does chemical reactions happen? Then quenching curiosity, sometimes, and oh, those that far moon, what is there on moon? I want to do that. Then rational explanation of the observed phenomena. I want to give a explanation. Conjuncturing new explanation account of observations, and intellectual activity of puzzle and problem solving. The last one, if you want to frivolously put it, it is to overcome your boredom. You are so bored that I'll give you a puzzle, then you solve that puzzle. So that is the use of our science. And then driving humanity towards rationalism, again, getting rid of superstition and so on. So just quickly see one or two of them. Understanding the universe. Now we have spent 5,000 years and we are continuing to spend this time. And this year's Nobel Prize even went to a part understanding of this universe. The reason is simple, that the world looks at the same time absolutely overwhelming, at the same time so beautiful. Look at this object, whatever that, I don't know what it is. It is some nebula somewhere. And its colors, then its splendid nature, then all the components inside there. No jewel on earth can ever equate this kind of a thing. Then what is this damn thing? Why is universe filled with all this? Is it everywhere the same, or is it different? Is there a change from one place to another? So this is the understanding of the universe. And once we understand the universe, the hope is we start understanding ourselves also, because we are a part of the universe. It is an entwined question. And so we understand universe to understand the understand oneself. Here, one should, again, we will spend a little more time, but we already did with commune. The prevalent notion now is the creation of the universe, and therefore creation of the human being through evolution is pointless. It has no particular use. No use was in mind. There was no mind, first of all. There was nothing like usefulness, and there is nothing like a reason for their existence. This being the case, understanding the universe is only an observation. Avalokiteshvara. I just want to see and then see what is happening. Now, what is a black hole? This is again a part of the universe. Universe has a black hole. How can there be a thing called black hole? What do you mean by this? Things which get absorbed, and in this diagram, it is actually so-called picture of a black hole. Now we said black hole, and how can you see a black hole? So we have made some funny things to see what a black hole is, and then what is happening, and why should this be a object of the world? And Roger Penrose, if you recall, this year got a Nobel Prize for working out the physics of black hole about 40, 50 years back. So this is what physics does. Then this is for curiosity. There is a thing called comet Churyumov, I don't know how to pronounce it. And we spent £1 billion sending the so-called Rosetta, interstellar object, to land on this one, on the Churyumov. And there is a lander called Philae, which actually flew out of this Rosetta and landed on this. What you see here is about 3 kilometers across, and its density is so low, and it is spinning, and it cannot be seen visibly from Earth except with the deepest telescopes. And we went there to find out what does it contain. Come on, I mean, curiosity has, they say the curiosity of a cat. We are doing exactly the same. We want to go and scratch the surface of Churyumov, and then we want to know what is happening. And then the reason we give is, if I know how this comet was formed, I will probably know how the Earth is formed. Okay, so one curiosity for the sake of another curiosity. So physics is filled with this kind of things. I'm not saying it is ignoble, but in fact, I'm amused, at the same time deeply interested. I am a part of this. We are all part of this. When this Rosetta happened, we were all locked onto the screen to see how it lands. And incidentally, it was not a great success. It broke up because it fell down, because the gravity was too low. All kinds of things happened. And we are still willing to take that result and say that, look, yeah, we know now about this particular thing. And any number of space probes, look at the Mars rover. It has gone and is trying to find whether there was life on Mars. In one extreme position, how does it matter whether Mars had life or not? It is pure curiosity. We want to know, how did the life form? What if life formed in Mars first and then came to Earth? So we want to understand. So this is the curiosity part. And then we want to give rational explanation. Look at a thing like Schrodinger's equation. My God, I mean, it's a very complicated equation, but it is very logical, properly reached. with a lot of arguments, and it describes the wave function of an object, the xi of RT, as a differential equation with four dimensions. And later we have the modern string theories, which extends many of these phenomena to a differential equation in 10 dimensions, 11 dimensions. Crazy, but we are giving a rational explanation. We call it rational because we arrived at by the, if so, then so, if so, then so, and so on. And similarly, Einstein's equations and so on. And we also do a lot of conjecture in physics. Hubble collected a lot of data, a very inspiring person. He was not somebody with a PhD. He was not any highly trained person, but he was in charge of a telescope. And his job was to maintain the telescope and observe and give data. He went on collecting. And in 1929, he said, hey, let me plot this. And then he plotted this, as you can see on the right side. And then he brought a whole new universe of understanding into picture. And that thing called, whole study defined a new constant called Hubble's constant. And it opened up the so-called expanding universe. And the universe overnight, it is, we are very fond of saying, in 1929, I don't know the date, that day, the universe expanded about 1 trillion times. We thought that the universe was this deep. Then after Hubble, it became 1 trillion deep universe. Then we work out of the puzzle dark matter. You see, what the pictures that you see are the pictures taken of the universe, real pictures taken through telescopes. The left-hand side is a bit of a simulation, but the right-hand side, and you see a lot of galaxies and so on. The point of this was that this picture should not look like what it is looking. It should have been something different. But it is looking like this because in between all these dark spaces that you see, it is filled with dark matter. Now, how do I make out what is happening to this dark matter? Is there a candidate particle which I can define as particle? So this is a puzzle. So physics keeps on doing this kind of conjecture and then rational explanations, curiosity, and then explaining this world and so on. Now, is there a practical use of science? Certainly. It is, they talk about betterment of human living, relieving the rut, exploring the universe, bringing social order. Remember, this fourth is a relatively recent phenomenon in physics, but bringing a social order through instruments of control, then to drive society towards equality, objectivity, and against diktat. The last point for me is extremely important, very practical. Science, many believe, is the only body of knowledge that can drive society towards equality between people, between objectivity of what you look at, and against any kind of a diktat. Applications we know very well, so I'll quickly run through. Nuclear power is because of physics. It has been done. And so is atomic bomb, which I didn't show it, but then it is nevertheless a big application. Then satellite communication, the whole thing, there is so much of science in this. Incidentally, when I use science in this, I always assume technology and engineering to follow. So they are all sort of together as a single body of knowledge. So this communication today we enjoy. Sitting here giving a talk and all of you listening, it's unimaginable 100 years back. Then we have gone to Mars. This is a true picture from Mars. Mars rover taking pictures of Mars, and we are exploring the universe. That's also a practical application. We couldn't have imagined, in fact, way back in 1894 or so, for the first time, a detailed mapping of surface of Mars was done through telescopes. And believe me, at that time, some people said, I see Martians moving there. That was the status of the universe just 100 years ago. And today, we know what it is very clearly by sending a probe like this. And when I said equality, we are now talking about net neutrality, where we claim that all bits are created equal. We are now enforcing this law into the world through engineering, through information theory, through mathematics. It is not just a good idea, but it is a law. And you can see that a lot of new such law has, imagine things like ethics. Today, when you want to do a scientific experiment, you have to go through an ethical procedure. So science is bringing a lot of these so-called slightly nebulous principles of morality, ethics, etc., into one common platform again, and helping us understand, establish, and do these kind of things. In my opinion, science should be extremely respected and used because it is forcing equality in its own way. It is bringing neutrality. It is bringing a lot of this kind of different kinds of things. In the abstract, we'll switch to philosophy now. Is there a use? Okay, understanding the universe. So what? Then understanding the relation between the individual and the universe. Okay, I mean, sometimes people think that as an individual and universe, my relation stops when I own a house and then at most a farmhouse. Then that is my universe. But is it that all, or is there anything more? And to bring peace and harmony, this is a use. Then practical uses, relief from unhappiness, what is called shoka nivarana, solving of the knot. I'll just mention that in a minute. And then resolving all doubts. You have any number of doubts, resolving them. Understanding that which makes everything else understood. You saw the question of Mundaka. And then in everlasting happiness, how wonderful it would be if all of us had nothing to worry about at all. I don't know if it becomes boring, but that's a different issue. But at least boring happiness is very much more desirable than a very active unhappiness, where it is not boring, but you are unhappy every time. Therefore, everlasting happiness can be interesting. Then immortality, all of us are beset with this question, and peace with the universe. And relief from birth and death cycles, that is what is added in the Indian philosophy. Now, this eternal happiness, it has been defined in different ways. It has been defined in various philosophical texts. Happiness is simply not absence of unhappiness. That is what some people say. Happiness is a lot of other added things like contentedness. Suppose you don't have anything which is outgoing, which you want to really attain, then it is unhappiness. Actually, there is a sentence which I'm trying to remember from Chandogya it says, prasannendriyaha prahasita vadanascha nischintaha kritartaha. So prasannendriyaha, the man who is happy has prasanna indriya. I mean, all his the senses are prasanna. But that is, look at the beauty of it. He sees beautifully. He listens beautifully. He talks beautifully. That is prasannendriya. Prahasita vadana. Because he is that, he has a smile on his face all the time. Nischintaha. He does not have a single thought about what next, what is to be done. Is she well? Is he well? Is world going to die tomorrow? Nothing. Nischintaha. Kritartaha. And he does not have, I have not finished anything. I say, oh, my house for my son is not registered. There is no such problem. These four are the qualities of a man who is eternally happy. Prasannendriya, prasadadanascha, nischinta kritartaha. So this is what the practical application of philosophy is. It makes you prasannendriya. It makes you prahasitavadana. It makes you nischintaha. It makes you kritartaha. Whether it is Indian philosophy or the Western philosophy, that is the eternal happiness that it guarantees. Then, vidyate hridaya granthi, it says in Sanskrit, these knots. Now, this process, maybe happiness is on one part, but I'm unhappy because I'm knitted in a knot. I mean, I want to do this, that causes this problem. I want to do that, that causes this problem. I want to help the world, but I don't have money. If I want to make money, I have to cheat the very people whom I want to help. So there are practical and theoretical knots that you have. You want to know who are you, but I am asking myself, my manas is asking, who are you? Then will my manas answer, who am I? I mean, it is almost, and if you say manas does not exist, it is suicide of the mind. If it says I exist, then it is a heavy thing that is there. So we have any number of knots, and philosophy guarantees that I am going to open these knots. I'll clear your knots. Then because of these two, happiness and clearing the knots, I'll give you an eternal peace. So you are at peace with yourself. You can sit down and just do what you like, and without any guilt, without any problem. You can also sit down and just keep drinking coffee, no problem. And I give you this peace. Okay, so we saw the purpose and then the applications or use. And now we will see the methodology. The science methodology is the following. It has an observation. That observation leads to a hypothesis. Then this hypothesis should lead to experimental experiments, which has a control group, which has an experimental group. Then the results come out. Then either the evidence reports the hypothesis, you go back and create more experiments to prove it, and it is inconsistent with the hypothesis, so you revise the hypothesis. Then finally, when everything is done, you have a scientific theory. Let's just quickly take an example and see what happened. With all the observation, Newtonian physics came, 300 years of Newtonian physics, and a lot of experiments were done. Everything was fitting. Unfortunately, at the end of 19th century, there were a few experiments which would not fit into Newtonian paradigm. There was this Mercury, which was moving in its axis, is rotating slightly, and Newtonian physics could not explain it. And then there were so many other phenomena, little here and there, the Brownian motion, so many things. So these experiments did not agree with, or could not be explained by Newton. Then came the hypothesis by Einstein in the form of special relativity and the general relativity, and also the quantum mechanics. Then there were many results which came in because of that experiments. Then many of that supported the evidence, and therefore it went back, did more experiments. And in the end, a scientific theory called relativity was evolved, a theory called quantum mechanics was done. And interestingly, this theory showed that these are much better than Newtonian, but for ordinary things, you can still use Newtonian. It is an approximation to me. So don't go overboard. Don't start applying quantum mechanics to your cooking. Newton physics will do. So this is what the methodology of science is. That is what is put in these view graphs. So, but you see what happens. One of the classical examples is, here I hope you see the animation that is happening. That animation is showing you that, there is what is called a retrograde motion. That is, if you see from Earth, all planets, they seem to be going around in one direction. At one point of time, they start going in the opposite direction. And then again, they come back. And then it keeps happening repeatedly. Then how do you explain this? So the ancient astronomers, they hypothesized that there is what is called an epicycle. That is, what they said was, Earth is the center of the universe, and there is a planet going around Earth. But the planet itself is not going around at one point, but it is going through another little circle around there, close to that. It is small enough, not observable from here, but close enough. And because it is going through that so-called epicycle, you see now, you can see the projection. So it is sort of seen as a retrograde motion. Now, if you want more complexity, you introduce epicycle of a epicycle. And you can keep on expanding the epicycles to explain any kind of a motion that the planet has. And this was the hypothesis. Then came the understanding that there is something wrong. I mean, world cannot be so complex, and more than anything, Earth cannot be the center of the universe. So when Copernicus said that it is heliocentric, then this picture on the right appeared. Then immediately it solved all our this whole epicycle theory was thrown to the dustbin. Today it is so thrown to dustbin that we don't even study in any physics. But it is an interesting thing. If you are interested in a bit of math, superimpose this circular motion over a circular motion, then you can create any kind of a complex motion on sky. So this is how science works. You have observation, theorize, conduct experiments. When it fails, give a better explanation, keep on experimenting till it fails, again replace it, and so on. Pluto was similarly, I mean, you can have any number of examples. I took this also as interesting. If you see on the left-hand side, we arrived at this picture that Pluto, Charon, and all that with a bit of observation, and then all kinds of rules around that. And then when we went to see Pluto, or a little before, even 10 years before we went to see Pluto, we realized that Charon, the so-called satellite of Pluto, is not very small compared to Pluto. It is almost as big. And then there was a lot of debate, and we demoted Pluto. Pluto was a planet. Now it is a minor planet. We don't even call it a planet anymore. Poor Pluto. I mean, there are some what are called Plutonians who still think that we have done injustice to Pluto because we demoted that fellow from a planet to a minor planet. But what can we do? We came to know that there are objects like P4 and PS that is shown, which are even bigger than Pluto, which is beyond Pluto. Are they planets or are they not planets? And if you want to make P4 a planet, then Pluto cannot be a planet. So this is what is done in science. There is nothing sacrosanct. You have a theory, you are a skeptic, you use it to the extent it is understandable, usable, The moment you find a doubt about it, create a new theory. Those of you who listen to Hamming, for instance, you see, he said the same thing. You have to trust a theory enough for you to progress, but mistrust it enough to make progress. That is what science is all about. And this is a nice diagram which I thought I would show you. This is from the Royal Society, which was created in the 1600s, and their logo is nullius in verba, which means on the word of no one. I don't trust you. You have told me, I will trust you momentarily because I cannot repeat the experiment. I cannot see Pluto, so I'll trust you. But I have every reason to mistrust you if I find you not okay. So I'm not going to take your word. You are not my final authority. Newton is not my authority. Einstein is not my authority. That is the spirit of science, on the word of no one. No one shall dictate me. Let's look at the methodology of Indian philosophy, which I am more familiar than the Western philosophy. It is always teaching by a teacher and a continued lineage, what is called parampara. And then it is by relentless questions. Actually, it is amusing to read that Narada Sanat Kumara, which I mentioned earlier. It is so in Buddhism, so in Jainism, and many others. So I'm just taking examples from what I'm familiar with. There, a fellow starts some question, then he keeps on asking questions again and again and again. And the whole chapter there goes on to describe about 40 questions, which are supposed to be finer than the previous question. So it is relentless. He is not stopping. At one point, the student stops. Then this teacher himself says, "Arey, you forgot to ask the next question." Because he says, you have wrongly stopped at the question here. You should continue. So that is the methodology. Then there are different stages of learning, depending on stages of life of the student. So this is the ashrama and so on. And there are an occasional leap. There is nothing like a young student should study for 40 years before he becomes an expert. He can occasionally, if the student is well prepared, he will jump and become a great philosopher. And it is listening to truth all the time, contemplation, and firmly establishing oneself in immersion. And this actually, there is no equal in English word. That's why I had to bring in the Sanskrit expression here. It says, drashtavyaha, shrotavyaha, mantavyaha, nididhyasitavyaha. So the way the knowledge proceeds is drashtavyaha. You have seen a few things and some questions have come. Shrotavyaha, then you have heard somebody says, I have a solution and this is what it is. You have heard, but you have not trusted it yet. Then mantavyaha, you have started thinking about it. Is this really true? Is there a question? Is this what you said is true? I mean, can it not be opposite and so on? And once you are convinced about all your discussion, nididhyasitavya, that is, you sit in that and you contemplate and then you sort of internalize it. It is called nididhyasana. It is simply not meditation. I had used that word earlier, I removed it, and I didn't find any other English expression. That's why I put the original expression here. And this is to the Shishya, Maitreyi. He is, her own husband is giving this knowledge. Say, Maitreyi, Atmani, Are Maitreyi, Yelei in Kannada, in the singular. Maitreyi, Atmani, Atmanalli, in the final truth, Drashtavyaha, see, Shodavyaha, hear, Mantavyaha, this one, contemplate, I mean, think about it and bring out all the doubts and nididhyasitavya. Finally, when you are convinced, sit in it and then internalize it. This is the methodology of Indian philosophy. Learning only by understanding a text through a competent teacher, he should be learned and he should be delving in philosophical teaching. It is called Shrotriyam Brahmanishtam is what he says. Shrotriya is the first one. He should have learned everything. And Brahmanishta, he should also be practicing it. Otherwise, there is no point in just listening to a practitioner who is not knowledgeable and not listening to a knowledgeable person who is not practicing. And philosophical texts are the verba of the teachings. Remember, we said nullius in verba in science, whereas here they are the verba. The texts are the fundamental things. So this methodology of Indian philosophy is based on testimony of the text. You actually go through the testimony of the text. Therefore, coming to the last part, the questions asked by both physics and philosophy are similar, if not the same. Very often they are the same. Who am I? How did life come from? Why am I unhappy? And so many things. And the emphasis of both are on understanding. They don't give you a hand-waving solution. Physics also tells you about understanding. Philosophy also says, unless you understand, you cannot solve these problems. The stress in both are rigor, logic, and objectivity. They say, I have got to be rigorous. I cannot do a hand-waving argument. And the logic has to be solid. In fact, what is called Nyaya or Tarka is as much a part of Indian philosophy as in any other science. So it has got to be logical and it has got to be objective. You cannot simply say, so Shankara gives some examples like, even if you say that the fire does not burn, I will not take your words because it is not objective. If I put my finger into a fire, it burns. So how can you give me any kind of an argument which says that fire is not burning? So that is not acceptable. So it has got to be rigorous, it has got to be logical, it has got to be objective. And then stress in both are betterment of the world. Both of them, they say, we will make you a better world for you. Yet, what are the differences? The science has an outward look. It looks at it does not ask self-referential questions. It doesn't ask about mind, doesn't ask about consciousness, though they have started asking it more recently. But the main thing is an outward look, whereas a philosophy is an inward look. They don't care if there's a galaxy elsewhere. They care about your mind. They care about your consciousness. So this is when I don't want to read it as we are running out of time, but refer to this is from Katha. It says, for some reason we have all been made so that we only see outwards. All our senses are going outwards. Kaschid Dhiraha, some one fellow somewhere, one in a million, he turns inward, Avritta Chakshu, he turns inside and asks question, why? Because Amrutatvam Icchan, because he wants a permanent solution. So those who want permanent solutions, they will actually look inside. And otherwise, Swayambhu is simply some lord, has made all our senses go outward. So he says, this is natural. World has been made. You have been made so that you look only outward. However, if you want Amrutatva, if you want the permanent solution for yourself, you have also to turn inward. It doesn't say don't look at outside. It says you have to turn Pratyagatmana Ichcha, Avritta Chakshu, Amrutatvam Icchan. So the use of science is the betterment of visible world. This is my expression, so you can actually remove it from your repertoire if you want to. This is what I felt. So the use of science is the betterment of the visible world, whereas the philosophy, it is just beyond the visible. It looks at the visible and the invisible world. The stress of science is an accuracy, and that of philosophy is quality and depth of happiness. The stress is different. Now, as Feynman said, religion is a culture of faith. For him, as I mentioned to you, religion is also philosophy, whereas science is a culture of doubt, is what he said. So we have a fundamental different ways of looking at the world. So concluding, are they complementary? I think so. There is no conflict between them, right? I mean, one is looking outward, one is looking inward. And what is the conflict? At times, this outward and inward, they clash, and so do these ideas. And then we can carry ideas from one to the another seamlessly. Are they contradictory? Certainly not. Can they coexist? Most essentially, yes, certainly. And then is there a continuum? I don't know. It depends on our individual constructions. I think there is a continuum between them, but there are some people who think that these two are two different worlds. Then do you need to support one with the results of the other? Certainly not. Science requires no philosophy and philosophy requires no science to support each other. There is what is called a philosophy of science and there is what is called a science of philosophy. Yeah, these are okay. That's fine. But do I require, if I want to strongly look at philosophy, do I require science? No, not necessarily. And similarly, science will not require help from philosophy to answer questions like what is consciousness. They are independent. They are looking at world differently. They are looking with different methodologies. Also, we saw two opposite methodologies, and they come out with results which are equally beneficial to the humankind. So this is what I want to conclude. Sorry for if it looked like a rambling. Sorry if it looked a little sort of meandering through various spaces, but this is what I could do. And if people have remarks and comments and other things, I'll be more than happy to take it. Also questions if I can answer them at all. Because to say that I am a physicist or I am a philosopher is not within my competence at all. Whatever I can, then I shall simply do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, sir. Now is the time for questions.
Yes,
so
sir.
there are a few questions coming up. I'll read them for you one by one. So
Okay, like Pankaj did, I will also just read through some of the comments.
sure, sir. Sure, sir. That would be great. Yeah.
Somebody
Sure, sir.
pointed out, Orion Nebula, elaborate on bringing social order through instruments of control. Okay, bringing social order through instruments of control. Instruments of control are simple things which actually eliminate any doubt about any control. For instance, if you look at for instance now, you have an OTP, and OTP tells you that you are ready to pay, and then you are the one who originated the whole thing. And OTP is in a way to make this whole transaction trustworthy, happy, and fast. That is what I would call an instrument of control. So you have a number of different kind of things which actually you have the social, for instance, even Aadhaar card in a way is a technology piece, isn't it? And that has made so many things so simple, and that is an instrument of control. So that whole thing, I had to apply, then I had to prove I am myself, I had to go physically be present, a lot of things were eliminated. So science helps you to bring a lot of these kind of instruments of control. Why the definition of happiness has so many dependent parameters, then what is absolute happiness? I'm afraid that it's going to take a lot of discussion for that. But ultimately, the so-called happiness is inherent in you. Actually, I should say that happiness was bundled along with existence. The moment anything happened, the happiness was a part of that. What has happened to us is we have become unhappy. We have forgotten that. So the so-called absolute unhappiness is only to remind that we came from happiness. And we see, if you take a rock, basically, let's say it is happy. There is nothing to disturb its happiness. So it remains there till it is broken down. Even when it is broken down, it is not unhappy because it is a part of that. It's an inanimate object. But you can also imagine that having a happiness. Now, animals, for instance, animal happiness, they depend on so few things that they are fundamentally not unhappy. So what philosophy is trying to say is happiness is a fundamental bundle of existence. When the existence came in, the happiness came in. Big Bang also had happiness. Happiness got, was created along with Big Bang, if you want to. What we have done is, due to various reasons of the self-referential questions and mind and consciousness and so on, we have become unhappy. So to remind you that you are happy, that you don't have to become happy, because anything which becomes will be unbecome. That has been the stand of all the philosophers. If you become something, you unbecome also. So happiness is not something which you become. It will not come to you. It is already there. You have become unhappy. So what can you do? You can get rid of that unhappiness. That is what philosophy says. And that is the absolute unhappiness, happiness in a very short way. But we have to have a lot of discussion, and you require more philosophers for that. How did the astronomers of the past did highly complex computation without aid of so-called computing devices? Well, first of all, they did extremely good observation. First is that even more than complex computation, they did a lot of very accurate observations, which is purely by just sight and then a few very, very small instruments like sextants and so on. For instance, this in 200 AD, India already knew about the precession of the equinox, which is only 50 seconds per year. So, so that they noticed. Then they started fitting it into some computation, simple models, complex models, and that evolved over a time. So it's not anything, I suppose it's sort of natural. Every advancement has a pinch of badness. Yeah, that's true. Engineering and technology improves lifestyle, but with badness too, of course, yes. And then, what is the highest degree of science in science is called the doctor of philosophy. Yeah, this comes from a little historical things that it was called natural philosophy. Sciences were called natural philosophy. So any degree in science was called a degree in natural philosophy, and there were philosophy. That's all, as simple as that. Yeah, then so one, Dr. PCD, connections between science and philosophy seem intricate, sometimes become a matter of semantics. Would not seem difficult to make categorical remark that the two are independent? would it not seem difficult to me? Yeah. No, I think, yeah, you can make them, you can call them independent, but the problem is they look at the same fundamental questions. So when two domains of knowledge address the same set of questions, it is but natural to say that they are related. That's how the relation comes in. Well, how do you interpret some of the neuroscience experiments regarding human decision making that indicated that decisions are made much before? Yeah, okay. See, the question still there is, all right, we are made of neurons and they make decisions and so on. What made that decision? You can still ask that question, right? You have a neural network, but to say that it made a decision is not is not adding to my knowledge. And if you say they fire and then this was the magnitude of thing from this neuron and therefore this happened, again, it doesn't say anything. Why did it fire that way? Where are those coefficients from? Who set it? So the thing is, there is still a ultimate point when we take AI, ML, etc., where we hit a point beyond which we cannot explain. And this is why we have all this continued struggle between these kind of questions. In the Indian philosophy, again, I don't want to delve too much in that. So many of these questions are called apaurushaya, in the sense, the moment you bring a human being into asking some of these questions and answering them, there is a bias added. So you keep on moving while asking questions to the last stage where I don't know is what you have to say. It is not answerable or made by a Purusha or Paurush. And the Gödel's theorem, right? I mean, there is a set of axioms from which you can prove some things and you cannot disprove some things. What can you do beyond that? You can change the set of axioms, but that doesn't absolve your problem. Actually, famously, David Hilbert said, to prove that algebra is consistent, I have to, he wanted to prove geometry is consistent. He came to a conclusion that if for geometry to be consistent, algebra should be consistent. All right. How do you prove algebra to be consistent? It went on like this, and Gödel came and said, you cannot prove it. So these questions like what you have asked, I think there is a terminal point beyond which it becomes Paurushaya. I mean, you cannot say why, I mean, how, what, why this world happened. I mean, I'm sure we should keep on persisting and keep pushing, regressing, so that we can keep on going as fundamentally as possible. That is why the question, is there a limit to knowledge? My view. What is your view on more technology-dependent science and when we had mind, which these still stand the test of time? So it is because there is disconnect between science and philosophy? No, there is no disconnect. I mean, well, science is progressing in its own way. Philosophy is going in its own way. They're asking the same questions. They're connecting somewhere. They're disconnecting somewhere. I don't think there is any other problem. And secondly, when you ask your opinion, I want to just quote you Richard Feynman. His own PhD students went to him and with a collected set of documents, I mean, usual literature survey and so on, and asked Feynman, sir, this is the literature, you know it. What is your opinion? He said, you are doing PhD. My opinion doesn't count. What is your opinion? And what is your own prejudices? That is what it matters. Because my prejudice, my opinion is of no consequence to you. So I would take that stand here. All of us, I think we'll have to understand our own way. And we certainly verify. We certainly do not become dogmatic. We are open to ideas. But I think the thinking process and connection and their nature, I think we should internalize it ourselves. That is my humble opinion. Yeah, Anando Brahmeti Vijanat. Yes. Again, you asked me my view. So for that, you will have to come home. We should recite the entire 3 vallis of Taittiriya. Then sit quietly and think about it. Then I don't think you need the answer. And I don't think you will want my view. So you will know yourself the most noble thoughts that were in Taittiriya. Cernus Nataraja statue, what is the philosophical reason behind this? Well, I think one is there is no philosophy, simply somebody put it there. But on the other hand, people started constructing philosophy after the statue was put. This is what happens, right? Many a times you see a picture and then you start attaching a lot of significance to it. And Nataraja, as you know, is a manifestation of many things. The Vishwarupa, and then the complete destruction. So many things are ascribed to Nataraja, and it is in a way a kind of a depiction of that in the cell. I hope that's what it is. Sir, we have passed our time a lot, so I think I would like to stop here. Sir, Professor Kincha is there, and Professor Vittalrao, if they have to say anything. I mean, they are my gurus on. And these gurus, they have made me what I am.
Vittalrao sir.
Yes, thank you, Professor Jamdagri.
Kincha's, Professor Kincha's,
until you
microphone
mentioned
is
my
muted.
name, I was sort of in a trance. Okay, it was a fantastic lecture. I just want to ask your opinion on the following question. As
Sir,
far as scientific theory is
Sir,
concerned, various
Professor
theories,
Kincha's phone is muted, sir.
No, sir, I'm reading
They are
code.
unable to hear Professor
I
Kincha.
have unmuted.
Sir,
Professor Vittalrao is giving his views.
Mr. Imtiaz, can you
Yeah.
kindly unmute Professor Kincha and Professor Vittalrao and any others?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, it's all done, sir. Done.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are able to hear this.
Professor
Professor
Jamdagri,
Murthy?
can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes.
But I think Jamdagri is not hearing me.
No, we're unable to hear Professor Kincha.
I'm here. Are you able to hear him, Prof?
Sir, we are able to hear you, sir. All of us.
Jamdagri sir.
Professor Jamdagri, can you hear me? Problem. He is not hearing us. Hello? Does anybody hear me now?
Yes, sir, all of us. All of us.
So we can all hear it. Sir.
I think Jamdagri is not hearing us.
Yeah, let's try. Jamdagri sir. Jamdagri sir.
I think he must be talking to somebody else, sir.
Sir, we are able to hear you.
Professor Kincha is unmuted.
Yeah, Kincha is speaking now.
ಈಗ ಇಬ್ರು
Sir, I'm able to hear you. Professor Vittalrao is making his comments.
Vittalrao is making his remarks.
Yeah, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir. Sir.
Yeah, as far as the scientific theories are concerned,
Yeah.
almost all of them are only temporary in nature, right?
Yes, correct.
Nothing is sure. It may change tomorrow, it may change after tomorrow.
Correct, sir.
Compared to that, take the mathematical theorems.
Yeah.
They are permanent.
Yes, exactly.
So the mathematicians are very clear that even though for 1 trillion numbers they can verify that there is no odd perfect number, they still don't state it as a theorem. The data fits very nicely to the theorem if I say that there are no odd prime numbers, odd perfect numbers. You take numbers up to 1 trillion and verify, 10 trillion and verify, or maybe 100 trillion and verify. It all satisfies data fits. But still the mathematicians, though the experiments have been done, they don't state it as a theory that there does not exist an odd perfect number. Still it is only a conjecture. So the problem therefore will be, you will end up again and again with like a Turing sorting problem or Gödel's incompleteness problem. So if you want to understand our universe, can we still be in our universe and understand it?
Yeah. It's a fantastic observation, sir. Yes, that is what some philosophers feel. That to ask what is our world in a world where we are sitting is many a times unanswerable.
So where are we? I mean, are we in such a hopeless situation?
No, they say that this inherent problem of circularity is there. And we have to keep striving for somehow understanding that. And then, so that's why they say, step out of your mind. I mean, I don't know what it means.
I think that's where I think the point you said that don't look outwards.
Exactly. Exactly. That is what they say.
Wasting your time looking outwards.
Exactly. Exactly. This is what all Indian philosophers say. You are wasting your time. How much will you go on? And then if you keep asking this word, there will be another word. There will be another word. So look inwards. Look who is asking the question. Where did that person come into existence? And slowly you start going backwards and say, my God, this is leading to my own annihilation.
Yeah.
Then we have arrived at some point. Actually, what you said, sir, you have actually spoken Professor Abdus Kala Salam's words again. The famous Pakistani physicist, he had come to, I believe, TIFR, and after his lecture, somebody said, you talked about 11 dimensions. We talk of Ekadasha Rudra. Do you think these two are related? He said, look, gentlemen, science changes by the day. The philosophy does not. My faith in my scriptures are far beyond the 11 dimensions that you are talking about. Don't mix these two up.
Correct.
That's what he said. I mean, he said his words you spoke in a little different way. That's all. Thank you, sir.
There's one more question I have.
Yeah.
One more thing on which I want your view. Okay.
Yeah.
Obviously, because it's about mathematics. Mathematics is a game, or a subject which is played in the mind.
Yeah.
It's not there in the physical universe.
Correct.
It is created, played, etc.
Yes.
But it seems to have somehow or the other get connected with the physical universe.
Yes.
How is it? What is the reason? Do you have any explanation for this?
Well, I have a conjecture or an explanation from the Upanishad, and it is difficult to substantiate that. When in Chandogya, or when somebody asks how the creation happened, it says simply that it is by the Sankalpa. The exact mantra is, let me try to remember.
Ekoham bahusyam. That's one.
That is again a slightly later position. Bahusyam prajayeti satapotapyata satapastapva. He says, Bahusyam prajayeti, I will become many, is what the creation, and it happened from that original seed called the Brahman. And therefore, everything that it created, mathematics, universe, human being, they are all connected by the same thread, is what I can say. Because the origin for all of them is a single common sadvastu, and everything came from that, and that is the connection. So they have got to be connected. But this is purely my, ignorant view, but supported by that.
Okay. So good. Thank you for a wonderful lecture.
Thank you, sir.
Word Professor Kincha.
Prof. Jams.
Yes, sir.
Hats off to you.
Thank you, sir.
You have stirred my mind, and probably it will remain like that for in the unstable state for quite some time now.
I'm sorry for that.
Quite some time for now.
I'm sorry for that,
One
sir.
thought came to my mind
when
you're talking that the two bodies of knowledge are trying to get at the same questions, And what thought came to me that if you are trying to dig a tunnel, a big tunnel, and if you dig it from both the sides, and try to ultimately meet at a common point, like the English Channel tunnel that we have, the English Channel tunnel, will it not be better to do that rather than going in an independent path?
Correct.
Both doing independently something, but probably if you try to dig the tunnel in one body of knowledge in one side and the other body of knowledge from other side, there is always a chance that these two knowledge sectors will meet and try to get the answer to that question. If that happens, probably some very new thoughts and very new theories will come up. And if it doesn't happen, it will remain as it is today.
Sir, you have a very deep insight and wonderful. In fact, in the last 50 years, it has slowly started happening. Like people like Schrodinger, they became philosophers. So they were digging this tunnel in your language from the physics side. towards philosophy. And then if you take a man like Professor Metzinger, who is in University of Mainz today, he's a professor of philosophy, but he is digging a tunnel towards science, towards biology, towards neuroscience. He is collaborating with some neuroscientists in EPFL, and but he's a philosopher. So what you said, I think people slowly realized, and both are happening. I think in the next 30 to 40 years, this will happen more and more and more. And probably, as you said, by 2050s or so, we will have some absolutely wonderful new theories, which are meeting point of these two tunnels. I think that metaphor is fantastic, sir. Having a tunnel from both.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Lots of learning and hats off. Hats off.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, Dr. Murthy, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we are done, isn't it? Yeah.
Srinivas, sir.
Yes, sir. Sir, I have a very pleasant duty of conveying thanks to you. Of course, the discussion that Professor Kincha sir and Professor Vitaldal sir did, they are like vote of thanks. I don't have anything to say, but I'll take it as a privilege to thank you. You started with, I am neither a philosopher nor a scientist. All the things that we want to learn is exactly from people like you, having known you at close corners. Is universe a reality? A lot of questions that you asked, and it was like attending Jeddu Krishnamurthy's talk, with a lot of questions. What is consciousness? And I feel the things like the self-referential questions like mind is asking, what is mind and consciousness? Very, very thought-provoking, sir. And I feel from your talk, every teacher has to learn how to ask questions. That's the best takeaway from all of us. And it always reminds me whenever I attend your questions, how many years I have wasted in my life. So many fruitful things could have been done.
Don't worry, all of us have the same problem.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So thank you, sir. It was very revelating, and we would like to, every time we listen to you, there is something new, which we are very happy about. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.